This meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have before you a modified or a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed revisions to the agenda as written? Alderman Corey.
Mayor, I would request that we add board business item A to the consent agenda. Consideration of making an appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission with the sole applicant being Briar Jones, correct?
All right. The proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place item 10A on page 3, the appointment of Briar Jones to the Historic Preservation Commission for the vacant position with a term ending July 1st, 2014 on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection?
One question I got, is that a ward-specific committee?
No. Okay.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, you have further proposed revisions?
Yeah, under building codes and planning department, I would request that we add items 1 and 2 to the consent agenda with the conditions supplied in our packets.
All right, the first proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place item 11B1, the consideration of the approval of P&Z item number FP 11-05 with conditions as provided by the Planning and Zoning Commission to the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on consent. Alderman Corey's next proposed revision is to place item 11B2, the consideration of the approval of P&Z item number FP 11-06 with the conditions as proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revisions?
Yeah, I have one more. Item 4 under building codes and planning. I would like to add it to consent. However, the what was placed in our packets had only 9 conditions, whereas on our table is a modified version of that had 10 total conditions. So I would move that we add that to consent agenda with the 10 conditions provided at our table.
Alderman Corey has proposed revising the agenda to place item 11B4, the approval of P&Z item number FP 11-08 with the 10 conditions as proposed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and laid out in the table in the supplement on the table on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revisions?
That's all I have.
Are there any further proposed revisions on the agenda? Alderman Dumas.
Building codes number 3.
All right, Alderman Dumas.
Consent with the 11 items as presented in the board packet.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 11B3, the approval of P&Z item number FP 11-07 with the 11 conditions as provided by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revisions?
Under board business, item B, consideration of advertisement for bids for brush arbors to consent.
The next proposed revision from Alderman Dumas is to place item 10B on page 3, the advertisement of bids on the clearing and cleanup of Brush Arbor Cemetery located on University Drive in accordance with the authority under of the city under Mississippi Code 21-37-21 on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any is that an objection?
Go ahead.
You can ask.
Was this the same cemetery we approved previously?
It is.
Is this
No
They
bids
cleaned it
were,
up yet before?
no bids were collected.
We did it in-house, correct?
Well,
Volunteer.
we cleaned it, initial tree shrub removal. This is for yearly maintenance, annual maintenance.
Does it need to have a not to exceed amount or a bid price? Or?
Well, I'd like to see what the bids are, to look at them to see what they are. You want to?
If I may, this is actually for the cleanup. We did the cleanup in-house, but we don't have the personnel right now. They're all occupied doing other respective chores in their departments. We did get an individualized contract. Somebody said they would come in and mow regularly, but it's got to be a condition to mow, which means a more in-depth cleanup, which we're unable to do in-house until after the season.
And it's under our cemetery budget.
That's, and that was my concern, is that there's no money appropriated for this right now, and so we don't have a budget line to take it from at this point.
And this is an advertisement, to be clear.
So in the
You-
meantime, we will find a funding.
Yeah, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. If you decided tonight that you didn't want to fund it, that would be one way to go, but you don't have to decide to fund it tonight.
We can advertise. We'll-
Yeah, this is purely advertisement, so I'd like to continue.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Any further proposed revision to the agenda? Any further proposed revision? Any further proposed revision?
Got one
Alderman
question. And board business item D, the consideration of renaming Reed Road to Garrett Road, and the Pat Station Road to Garrett Road, and the intersection of Old West Point to the eastern city limits. When this happens before, what's the normal process? Do you contact constituents that live in that area? Have people been notified, or do they just find out the road's changed? I mean, there's gonna be a trickle-down 6-month effect for them to change all the bills and their...
Mr. Mayor, let that be recognized.
You may.
Gentlemen, for one, I spoke to Ms. Sproul. I have contacted some of the people on the area that will be affected on the current Reed Road. Basically, as you well know, we're going to, the proposal is to rename the western city limits of Reed Road up to the intersection of now Garrett Road and Reed Road. That's the biggest stretch of it. So I've talked with some different people I could catch it with. They had no objection, and of course the other part is already Garrett Road up to the new part, and of course in the new part will be Garrett Road. Then I think that will take us to the old West Point Road. It's not much stretch on there for the Pat Station, but I did contact some people over in the affected area, which is a wide stretch from the western city limits up to the fork there at Reed in 182, and they had no objections to it, the ones that I talked with. So just want to share that with you.
Okay, what's the big gain from doing this? Are they just eliminate confusion for emergency responders, or is it?
Well, at the last meeting, the gentleman from 5, I don't want to speak for him, but I thought he had a great idea. It was just to have some commonality on the road name, just for emergency and other safety and health concerns. Because right now, if you leave it like it is, you'll have 3 roads. You'll have from the western city limits, which is basically in Mount Water, the north side, up to Reed and Garrett, and and then you have Garrett going all the way up to the Pat Station. So if you just have, as he mentioned at the last meeting, if we approve the renaming, the whole roadway from the eastern to the western limit just be under one name. So if you call 911, then say Garrett Road, and you get a new person out there on the scene, it could be a matter of life and death. So I think it's a good governmental interest here want to do that. That's why I fully support this. And the gentleman from 5, he recommended that at the last meeting. So I think it's a great idea.
So the entire stretch of road would be Garrett?
It'd be Garrett Road, yes, sir, from the eastern to the western city limits, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any further proposed revisions to the agenda? Any further proposed revisions? Are there any further proposed revisions? Seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Alderman Corey to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter you have before you is the consideration of the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. That will carry us to the consideration of the approval of the minutes from the June 21st, 2011 meeting. Discussion. Alderman Corey.
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes from June 21st, 2011 with the 5 recommended changes from the city attorney that have been reduced to writing.
All right, and could you pass that copy? All right, Alderman Corey has moved to approve of the June 21st, 2011 minutes as presented with 5 changes he has reduced to writing. And those changes are in the request revision to the official agenda section. Last item, supposed request by Eric Parker to remove from consent item 7C. The second proposed change is there are 2 small typo items in line 3, strike the word of, item 3, strike the word of, item 4, change EHE to THE. The third proposed revision to the minutes is item 16, the words lowest and best bid or lowest quote or state contract were.
We don't need that one after further review.
All right, Alderman Corey, would you like to amend your motion?
So, yes, please.
All right, Alderman Corey has amended his motion to strike what was previously the third proposed revision to the minutes. So what was the fourth proposed revision to the minutes will now become the third proposed revision to the minutes, and that is item 25, change the word appraisal to appraiser in the heading. And the final proposed revision to the minutes is item 26. Please add the word tax before the word map in the heading. And I am submitting this writing to the city clerk. Yes. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Dumas to approve of the June 21st, 2011 minutes with the changes reduced to writing. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that will take us to announcements and comments. And I have a couple of series of comments tonight. First, I would like to introduce our new employees to the city of Starkville. We have 2 new employees this evening. The first is Thalmus Morgan. You could come forward with your department head. It is my pleasure to introduce Thalmus Morgan as the new Operator 1 in the Landscape Division of Sanitation and Environmental Services. Thalmus is originally from Phoebe and attended West Clay High School. He attended East Mississippi Community College, where he received a certificate in welding. Before joining the city of Starkville, Thalmus spent 17 years with Bryan Foods and has been doing farm work most of his life. Thalmus and his wife are the proud parents of 4 girls. He and his family attend First Baptist Church in Phoebe, where Thalmus has spent the past 10 years teaching and being a superintendent. During his spare time, he enjoys weightlifting. Please join me in welcoming Thalmus Morgan to the city work. And I would now like to introduce Bobby Jordan. Bobby Jordan is our new Maintenance Worker 2 for the Landscape Division in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Bobby is originally from Starkville and attended 16th Section High School. Bobby previously worked for the city of Starkville for 11 years in the city's sanitation department. Bobby is married and has 2 children, a daughter named Wanda and a son named Kevin. Bobby also has a large extended family. He grew up with 6 brothers and sisters. He and his family attend 16th Section Church. In his spare time, Bobby enjoys tinkering around the house. Please join me in welcoming Bobby. And now I'm going to move to the podium because I've got a series of very special presentations to make.
That's where you go, Chuck.
Honoring a group of very distinguished retirees that are leaving. It is my privilege tonight to present plaques to a group of retirees from the city of Starkville. As I started preparing for this presentation, I was amazed at the service that this group of retirees has provided to the city. This group of retirees represents service to our fire department, our electric department, our public services department, our sanitation and environmental services department, our building codes and planning department. We even have some service represented in this group to our police department. The absolutely awesome fact is that this group in total represents a combined 198.5 years of service to the city of Starkville. We have folks in this group that were working for the city of Starkville before many of us at this table were born. To all of you, let me say thanks for the many years of support that you provided us all. Your presence will be missed, but especially the knowledge and experience that you have garnered over almost 200 years of service will be missed. We have a very full agenda tonight, and time will not allow me to list the many accomplishments that this group represents. As I reflect on this group, however, I am reminded of a quote by Tom Brokaw. He said, "It's easy to make a buck. It's a lot tougher to make a difference." To each of you, I can truly say, you have made a difference in the city of Starkville, and we will forever be indebted to you for it. At this time, I'm going to recognize each of our retirees, and I'll ask you when your name is called to come forward along with your department head for a plaque presentation. First, I'd like to recognize two retirees from the fire department. Mike Collins has 37 years and 2 months of service to the city. Keith Kenner, also from the fire department, has 25 years and 10 months of service with the city. Y'all stay up here. I'll take one big picture. From the electric department, Larry Wallace has 27 years and 3 months of service. Also from the electric department, Marcus Anderson has 27 years and 2 months of service. Marcus here.
He's here.
Oh, okay. Y'all stay up here, we'll take one big picture. From the Public Services Department, Jerry Ward has 27 years, 9 months of service. And also from the Public Services Department, David Putt has 23 years and 3 months of service. From the Building Codes and Planning Department, Sarah McCain has 17 years and 4 months of service. Keep these going, I'll catch you up. Congratulations. All right, and if we hadn't gotten your picture yet, as soon as we get the camera back, make sure you stay and have the picture taken at the end. From the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department, Glenn Beverly has 12 years and 7 months of service. All right, now there are 3 of you that hadn't had your individual taken yet. Joe, get Jones.
We need to battle folks who can.
And then Ben and Sarah. All right, Ben and Sarah, and then we'll take one group.
Should have seen me. She's not retired. How many you got now?
Let's move in and take a group, and everybody please join me in giving all the desired. We're gonna be eating.
That is neat. You must have plenty of whispering at that time.
Yes. No doubt.
Get close.
I'm looking sad. Just supposed to be happy today.
They all left. Wait, you not gonna stay for the meeting? I want to see.
All right, that concludes the comments I had this evening. Are there any comments from the members of the board? Any comments from the members of the board? Any comments? Any comments? Seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. Any citizen wishing to make comments this evening may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Greeting to the mayor and board. My name is Adam Turner, Ward 7. Good evening to the Vice Mayor Citron and Alderman Vaughn.
Good evening, Mr. Turner.
I had a housing, Starkville Housing Resident Council meeting, the reason that I wasn't at the town hall meeting on the 12th. Citizen involvement. We thank y'all for the signs. They are a big help. The citizens have a worry about the bypass and 389 coming up on the bypass. They have to come to the second arrow to see what's coming, or they cannot see if they're not in the second arrow on the bypass. And it's dark at night, a flashing light would help. The bypass and Longview are, they have a dangerous curve and a blind spot. You have to almost come in the road to see what's coming. A flashing light would help. The 3 feet rule for biking, that we are concerned about the police, the fire department, school buses, sanitation, vehicles that have to travel in emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Do we have any further citizen comments tonight?
Good evening to the board, to the mayor. My name is George. And by the way,
Could
me
you
and Alvin
state your
good,
last name?
Moore. Me and Alvin good friends. And what I'm here today for, I have a concern, you know. And one of my concerns is that I notice every summer that goes by, I know we have a lot of young people when they get out of school during the summer months. We don't have any summer job programs for them. I know that it's a little late in the summer for you ought to create something, but I'm sure next year, I'm making it known in advance that I would like to see something like that for the young people. And this is not a black or white thing, it's for the young people in general. We don't have any jobs available for them during the summertime, you know, when they get out of school. I think that that's something that we need to be looking forward to doing for our young people, because where I work at, I have a lot of young people to come through there, and they always asking about jobs, and they want to work. But we don't have any summer job programs. And I know in Lowndes County, they had a summer job program over there available for the youth. But we don't have it here in Starkville. And I know that for the last several years, I've been living here for 17 years, I haven't seen anything like that. And I think that it's a great concern, you know. And I think some of these young people really want to work. And if we put it out there, the jobs for them to get, I know we have Burger Kings and McDonald's and Hardee's and things like that, but they can only hire so many people. But I know if we get a government grant here in our city, we can create those jobs for those young people and put them to work. And then we can have what I consider responsible young adults. Perhaps, and I'm talking about high school kids, perhaps they would grow up and become productive citizens. And you'll have a lot of happy parents and voters. And thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, I want to ask you a question. That one in Columbus and Lowndes County, is that something, could you do some research and find out if that's a state-funded grant, or if that's something that Columbus, the city of Columbus is paying for, or Lowndes County is paying for, or could you do that and maybe get back with me or us?
I can do that.
That's a good idea. Just find out how they're funding it, you know.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further citizen comments tonight?
I'm Alan Burnham from Ward 2. I know that you've got a public meeting this evening on the solid waste ordinance and revisions. I would like to make my comments prior to that and may make some at that time. I've got a statement I'd like to read because the fact, so that I don't wander off track. 2 weeks ago at the July 5th regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, I made a request that the entire solid waste ordinance 2010-03 be revisited by the board rather than considering only the house cleaning revisions being proposed. And then again, they're coming up tonight. I'm here again tonight to request the same, that the action of the board on adoption of the proposed revisions be tabled until the entire ordinance can be revisited to make it less confusing, less wordy, more relevant, and more enforceable. To amend a flawed document with cosmetic and flawed revisions serves no purpose. Certainly such action will not serve the citizens of Starkville. Parts of the ordinance as it now stands and will stand with the proposed revisions if adopted tonight are unenforceable. Why weigh down such an important ordinance with unenforceable restrictions? Let me give you just a couple of examples. Section 5, points of collection, item E, it says that prohibited bagged garbage can, it says that the garbage can only be put out between the hours of 5 and 7 in the morning on the scheduled collection day. and that's in one of the proposed revisions for tonight. Repeated violations will result in a fine. And in my neighborhood, for instance, yesterday, garbage wasn't picked up until afternoon. So I was if I put it out after 7 o'clock in the morning, I was in violation of the ordinance, and I think that's ridiculous. It's unenforceable. Under Section 12, certain waste unsuitable for collection, item A says, and here comes the dead mouse item again, the dead animals and animal dressings or animal manure in any quantity does, and it says that zero in any quantity. Well, what does any quantity mean? There are a lot of definitions in the ordinance, but that is not defined. Does it mean zero, or does it mean 100 pounds or less, or 100 pounds or more? I don't know. And as far as disposing of dead animals, I suppose that one would say that common sense should prevail. Yes, it probably should. But if it's unenforceable and it means nothing, why put it in the ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Do we have any further citizen comments tonight? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, we'll move to, well, our one public appearance that was scheduled tonight has been canceled, so we'll move to public hearings. And we have one public hearing scheduled for this evening. That is the second public hearing on amending the solid waste ordinance 2010-3. Alderman Parker, would you like to introduce?
I will, Mayor. From the last meeting to this meeting, we have, as we made recommendations as requested by the city attorney on cleaning up the definitions in the beginning of the document. We basically took all the recommendations that he had we added a couple of definitions that weren't there, as in rubbish division and household rubbish. We cleaned up the garbage definition, and we just tidied up those areas that were a bit of confusion last time. And then the other changes remain the same from last time, where we are changing the size of limbs that can be picked up. We're increasing that. We are taking the fine schedule, and we're resetting the fine schedule every year on an annual basis. And we're changing the department itself changed names, so we are changing the name in the document to reflect the name change. Those are the primary. We've made sure we've tidied up those definitions in the beginning to make sure nobody is confused as far as a container or what is a container. Container is not required by any means other than the bags that we supply. That's primarily it.
Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board?
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Ms. Spruill, are you there? Okay. Just a couple of housekeeping changes, and I'm looking at the copy that I got from you earlier, if I can go to a little quicker. Let's see, just a couple of reference changes. These pages need to be numbered, before we approve. Maybe it'll be part of the motion. But under Section 3, B, there are two B's on the draft you gave me. It says specification refuse containers are required as follows. Can you, just a couple of housekeeping little changes. Turn to that part. And my pages are not numbered, but it's under Section 3. There are two B's I see.
Alderman, I don't want to interrupt you. I think you're in Section 4.
Okay.
Section 4 is at the top of the next page. It may be covered
Oh, yeah,
up.
Section 4, right. Section 4B.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, that's great. Section 4B, Lynn.
Yes, sir.
There are two references to sanitation department in that paragraph B. That needs to be reflect the name of the new department.
Okay.
You see where I am?
Yes, sir, I fixed that.
Okay, it's one other place. Let's fast forward all the way over to, let me see what section. I'm looking at your draft, that's why it's kind of hard. Section 9. 9R. At the last sentence where it says sanitation department heads sole determination, just change that. I have those two proposed changes, and I think we need to put some page numbers, when we get it to adopt it. So whoever makes the motion to make those two changes and put some page numbers in, everything else look good. Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? there any further questions or comments from the members? Seeing none, we will move. Oh, Alderman Corey.
I know that the changes in the ordinance meet legal requirements, otherwise the city attorney would have said something by now. But in regards to what Milo was saying earlier, enforceability, have any of those questions been raised? Lynn, have you had a chance to kind of look into that since we discussed that at the previous meeting regarding the ease of which to be able to enforce some of these changes, and also, for example, the narrow window of time with which
The narrow window of time is if you choose to put your garbage out in plastic bags only. If you want to put it out the night before, you can put it out in a container with a lid so that you can try to meet that window. The problem we were trying to address is that we have people, the sanitation department starts at 7 o'clock. I don't know necessarily when it goes through Longmeadow, but it goes through certain areas of town by 7 o'clock, and we've had people put it out at 10 when the trash already runs. So that keeps everyone being able to pick up their garbage. Now, if you go outside and you see, you know the garbage has been picked up and you want to put yours out, that is a reasonable and prudent thing that you can do. But we're trying to accommodate the entire town when we do that, and if the sanitation starts at 7, then and you don't have it out, then we really don't have a way to say, go back and pick it back up again because we didn't have the timeline. So that's the thought process associated with that.
Any further questions or comments from the member? Alderman Carver.
Still got my question about the carpet, and I guess what this ordinance is addressing is for the contractors to take their waste with them, more or less is what I get from this, and that the resident, if they're doing anything, that they can leave their, as long as it fits into a bag, the city will come get it, right? So carpet the way it is now, I just carpeted 3 bedrooms this week, but if I'd have rolled it out to the street, the city wouldn't pick it up,
Unless it were in bags.
unless you cut it up and put it in the bag.
Or you could have taken it to the landfill yourself.
Right, but if you can't leave. And then the trees, I do like the fact that it went from, what, 8 to 10 inches in diameter?
And from 8 to 10 feet in length.
So added that, and the trucks got the capacity to do that, and, okay.
Any further questions, or Alderman Sistrunk?
And mine is a general comment, based on what Milo was saying, and not necessarily directed to this ordinance, but there are many things that we have on the books as ordinances that when we look at them for revision, it would be wise to take a holistic approach to looking at them and stepping back and making sure they reflect where we are as a community now, as opposed to when they were adopted 10, 12, 40 years ago. But there's much work to be done there, and I understand that this gets us a little closer, but I don't want us to neglect the idea of taking that holistic view of those revisions.
Are there any further questions or comments from the members of the board?
I would like to add in here, in the definitions, I know I've said this a couple of times, but in the definitions, there is a phrase, stumps, logs, or tree trunks, that's referenced a couple of times. In one instance, it's stricken. In other instances, it's just simply goes as stumps, logs, or tree trunks. I'd like to add that as a definition, and then simply put to see commercial waste as the definition, because those metrics are spelled out in the commercial waste definition. And I think as anybody would be looking for what a stump, log, or tree trunk meant, they would not intuitively go, or by instinct go to commercial waste as the part to get that. So I'm not sure how that needs to be referenced in this, but I would like to add that definition.
As a housekeeping note, anticipating that after we complete the public hearing, we will move into a discussion and a motion might be made. I would just ask if someone is preparing a motion, try to organize your changes to what is presented, because I've heard a bunch of them, and that's going to be hard to get in the form of a motion. Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we will move into the citizen comment portion of the public hearing. And in keeping with standard practice, we will hear, beginning with an opportunity for someone who wants to speak for the ordinance, and then an opportunity for someone who wants to speak against the ordinance. people alternating just like that for a maximum of 3 minutes each until each side has exhausted a total allotment of 15 minutes of time, or until no one else wishes to speak on the subject. Is there now anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Seeing no one, is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment?
Greeting to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. I'm 51 years old. I'm my mother's oldest male child. My baby brother, he worked for sanitation. He's the baby of the house. I wouldn't want to hear that something went wrong, truck blew up or something, or he got hurt by any chance. I wouldn't want his wife to hear that or something have happened to your husband. Let us be clear and careful. These guys be wrangling with, trying to help make the city better. Let us take their lives and help under consideration. And because I don't know what they're being paid, but they do the best they can. And with the trucks and everything, those trucks are expensive. And let us try to take care of our property and take care of the employees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment? Mr. Burns?
I'm not going to repeat my comments of just a few minutes ago, but I would like to bring up the fact that I do stand in opposition to the amendment and to the ordinance as amended. I don't take this rule's explanation of the time as acceptable, at least not for me. I don't understand why it is okay to put out a tree limb which is 8 inches in diameter and 10 feet long and be within the ordinance, and yet if I put out a 2x4 from a do-it-yourself project, I am in violation of the ordinance. As far as the fact that if I mow the grass with my lawnmower that throws the blade, doesn't throw the blade, but throws the grass into the street, that I am in violation of the ordinance and therefore subject to a fine. And yet, the sanitation trucks themselves the other day dumped a gallon of putrid liquid right in front of my house, and Alderman Sistrum saw that, and I went out and washed it out of there. And they're not in violation of the ordinance, apparently. I'm in violation, I'm in opposition to the ordinance as it now stands. I am in opposition to the amendments and revisions to the ordinance. I think that you people need to get busy and look at the whole ordinance rather than trying to just put a Band-Aid on a festering wound.
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone now wishing to speak against the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed ordinance amendment? Is there anyone wishing to speak for, against, or indifferent to the proposed ordinance amendment? Anyone wishing to speak on the proposed ordinance amendment? Seeing no one, that will conclude the citizen comment portion of the public hearing, and I will offer one more opportunity for any of the members of the board to make comments before concluding the hearing. Any members of the board wishing to make comments? Alderman Carver.
I'm still hung up on the Section 9Q with the carpet, and that's probably the reason I vote against it. Other than that, I think it's a pretty good ordinance.
Any further comments by Alderman Sister?
And I'd like to reiterate that this is an ordinance that's already on the books, that that a lot of what's in here is housekeeping in nature, that it's not significant changes. Milo does make a very good point that with each of our ordinances, we could step back and take a broader review of them, and that might be something we want to follow up after the housekeeping that's done with tonight's amendment, proposed amendment.
Is there any further comment from the members of the board? Any further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments? Seeing none, that will conclude this, our second public hearing on the proposed amendments to the solid waste ordinance. And that will carry us all the way to the consideration of amending the solid waste ordinance 2010-3, item G under board business. Discussion. Alderman Parker.
I would, for those that have recommendations, I would welcome any amendments, but I will move approval of amending the solid waste ordinance 2010-3 and the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, to provide for a nomenclature change in rubbish requirements and other related matters, and also ensuring that everywhere referenced that Sanitation and Environmental Services Department and Department Head is referred to correctly.
And for the record, the paragraphs that Alderman Perkins flagged were 4B and 9R, where that change needed to be made.
Alderman Parker, would you like to make direct reference to those paragraphs, or does your motion suffice?
I feel like referencing the entire document would
That's fine.
suffice. All right.
Alderman Parker has made a motion to amend solid waste ordinance 2010-3 and the City of Starkville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54, to provide for a nomenclature change in rubbish requirements and other related matters as presented, with the following change. All references to sanitation and environmental services, either as a department or in reference to its department head, shall be made to comply with the actual name of the department. Alderman Parker, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Parker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not. I mean, I would say that the time frame from 5 to 7 is just an absolute requirement that the sanitation department has to have to operate in an efficient manner. I mean, there's no way. I mean, people do get complacent, and they, I know my garbage is usually picked up between 11 and 12, but there are times when the sanitation department has to run a different route, or they were behind, or they're ahead, holidays. So it's imperative that we have a time frame. There is no fine or fee if you put it out later. That would be your choice. But you run the risk that if you put it out later, it could not be picked up. So the time from 5 to 7, while you're not required to have it on the curb by that time. You're required to have it on that curb at that time if you expect it to be picked up. And that's just something that the sanitation department has to have to run efficiently. So that's why that time frame is in there. Just want to try to, I know we've talked about that, I just wanted to make that clear, try to make it a little clearer. I mean, they have to have a system that they go by. I know.
Further discussion on Alderman Parker's motion. Any further discussion? Alderman Dennis.
I've got an amendment.
All right, are you making a motion?
I've got it, yes. I want to make a amendment to that motion that included in the details of Alderman Parker's motion. I would like to include that in Section 2, or Section 1, definitions, that stumps, logs, or tree trunks be added as a definition, and the definition being to see commercial waste.
I don't know if I follow the second part of that.
I'd like to add the following sentence between spot treatment and trash under Section 1 definitions to read as follows. Stumps, logs, or tree trunks, C, commercial waste.
So C, commercial waste is part of the text of your amendment?
Yes.
Alderman Dumas, I'm struggling with
And that is following,
I'm not sure C, commercial waste gets it done as far as defining.
well, and I don't either, and that's why I brought it up a couple of other times, is the fact that,
Hold on. We need to either have a motion or not have one. If y'all need to flesh it out, we just,
well, I'll withdraw that motion and that amendment, and let's have the discussion. As you notice several times in the definition section of this, there are references to the phrase, stumps, logs, or tree trunks. There's one in garden trash, but there's no definition. There's one several pages back. There's one under tree trimmings, but it offers no definition. And so the thing I get most often asked to me is how big of a tree, or how big is the, trimmings can I put out on the road? And the only time that is clarified in here is under commercial waste.
Right, but a blind reference to commercial waste, I think, keeps it unclear. Is what you're saying that you want stumps, logs, and tree trunks to be anything over 8 inches in diameter and over 10 feet in length?
Well,
Because if that's
no,
what,
because that does not define a stump or I guess in reference. I don't know. I think it needs to be cleared up, because that is a significant part of our garbage collection. But in here, it's not very clearly stated as what that is. You can see on page, I guess this is section 9, under wood cuttings, it talks about placed at curbside may be no more than 8 inches in diameter, and rigid material shall be no more than 10 feet in length. Well, that's referencing as wood cuttings, but in definition, it references a phrase, stumps, logs, or tree trunks, that's never defined, but yet that is a commonly referred to phrase throughout this whole ordinance. That's never defined. And I just offer that as I guess to go back to, I just think that needs to be cleared up. I think that's because we refer to tree trimmings, but then we refer to commercial waste as where we have the definitions of what a tree trimming is, but yet it's also found in domestic waste as tree trimmings, but yet we have no definition under tree trimming of what actually the size is, except that famous phrase of does not include stumps, logs, or tree trunks.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Dumas, were you finished?
Yes.
Alderman Perkins.
It seemed like that this proposed amendment is very important to the gentleman from 5. And one procedural suggestion could be, and that's up to the gentleman, I'm sure he knows how to handle this matter, he could offer a motion to table. And if the motion to table is offered, it'll take precedent over the pending motion, and then if you want to, and that's if he desires, he could bring that amendment back at the next meeting, or it could be cleaned up to accommodate that. So however the board wishes to proceed. So if a motion to table was offered, it would take precedent over the pending motion, and then it would be tabled until the board brought it back up. But that's up to him. I just offer that friendly suggestion if that's what he wanted to do.
Well, I mean, perhaps I'm beating a dead horse here, but, and I think if you read through here, you can probably piece this thing together, and perhaps it goes directly with what Milo's saying. But there are several references to different phrases that go back to the same thing. We call it tree trimmings, we call it commercial waste, we call it domestic waste, we call it a number of things, and it's only tucked away in a small little definition of commercial waste that actually defines it. And then under the wood cutting section of section 9. And then when you go to landscape and yard maintenance, it just refers to it as 20 cubic yards of material.
Mayor, might be recognized.
You may.
Alderman Dumas, I just throw this out for food for thought. I'm not against a definition like this, but there is sometimes some utility in not defining every term, especially when that term has a common understanding. And the reason is, I think it would give the city some discretion in that area. Now, it cuts both ways. It could give the resident, the garbage producer, some discretion as well. But I just throw that out there, that that every word may not necessarily be defined when there's some common sense understanding of what the words are.
Even when it's as oftentimes repetitive as stumps, logs, and tree trunks. All right, I'll rest my case. I stand on my withheld amendment. And
We don't have a motion pending.
well, no, we have a motion and a
Motion
second.
pending, we just don't have.
I was
We
offering
have a motion from Alderman Parker.
Yeah, and I
pending.
withheld.
We don't
and
have
I-
it in, okay.
No, I withdrew
Just making sure you
mine.
didn't wanna
Yeah,
make the
No,
motion.
I withdrew mine.
Okay. Further discussion on Alderman Parker's motion. Alderman Carver.
One last question. Section 9N. I just want to know what this is. Solid waste resulting from property clearance not considered to be trimming, which would be care of bushes and, anything less than 10 feet, shall not be permitted to be placed on the street or the curb of the sidewalk, and the responsibility for removal is that of the property owner. So what is that referencing?
I mean, if you're reading the definition, if you're clearing property, you're undoubtedly cutting down trees and you're cutting down, you're clearing the whole lot. If you're pruning or trimming trees, it's different than clearing a lot.
So this is like if a homeowner does a do-it-yourself project, and that's section N, solid waste from property clearance?
Alderman Parker, does that not speak to home renovation debris, construction, general residential construction debris?
All those 2x4.
It very well could, yes.
Well, the way I was reading it says do-it-yourself projects would be removed by the homeowner, correct? The way it stands now, or can I tear a wall out of my house and put it on the street and the city carry it off as long as it meets the length requirements or not? No, just a little confused. So the point of this ordinance is for I understand, if you're a contractor, you're doing this for a living, you take care of your own mess, and you get it back out of the house and get it to the dump, right? And as it applies to a homeowner, if the homeowner does work on their house, who's responsible? They can't leave anything on the street, so I'm renovating the house that I live in. Do I have to take it to the dump myself?
Well, we'll ask sanitation director, because we haven't changed anything about that in the ordinance.
Okay.
There's nothing changed. So
Other
it's
than the
what it
carpet.
is now is what it will be. So we'll ask her what her policy is on picking up debris at the curb right now. What?
Do-it-yourself project, it depends upon how. It's not considered household rubbish at all. It's responsibility of the owner, the contractor, or the tenant to take it away, not the city. You tearing down doghouse or rebuilding a fence or whatever. It's your responsibility to take to the rubbish landfill out.
And there's no
Unless-
fee for that.
Unless you can get it
As
in a
a homeowner.
bag or.
Unless you can get it in a bag.
Okay.
Further discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we table this issue until for further consideration.
Motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to table Alderman Parker's motion, and that is not a debatable matter, so we will move directly into a roll call vote on Alderman Dumas's motion to table Alderman Parker's motion to approve of the sanitation ordinance amendment.
And I'm gonna second the motion to table.
Yes, that's what it is, second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Perkins, so now we'll move into a roll call vote on Alderman Dumas's motion. Please answer yay, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver,
Okay.
Alderman Sistrum,
Yay.
Alderman Parker,
Nay.
Alderman Corey,
Nay.
Alderman Dumas,
Yay.
Alderman Perkins,
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn,
Yay.
By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes, and the proposed motion is tabled.
And what I would recommend to this board, if they have recommendations, they bring it before our next meeting and not the night of.
Great.
Yeah. Let me also suggest a course of action for what it's worth. There are changes that have to be made to our existing ordinance to accommodate services that it did not originally accommodate. I would suggest making those changes as quickly as possible. And then if we want to have a broader discussion about what is inadequate about the ordinance, perhaps that's something that the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee can devote some more time to. But I just want to press the urgency of adopting the ordinance that accommodates our rubbish program and changes in the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department. Any further discussion on that topic? Seeing none, we'll move to a report from the Budget Committee. Alderman Sistrunk?
Yes, the Budget Committee met last week and spoke generally about areas where our budget would be going in the next fiscal year. We talked about areas where we could potentially reduce some expenses, such as some equipment that was funded this year that were one-time purchases. We talked about areas where we would have new expenses, particularly the city's health insurance for employees, a PERS increase that is mandated by the state that will come into effect in January. These were very general discussions, and as the city clerk will certainly attest, the numbers are changing daily as far as what's going into the draft budget for fiscal year 12. It is our intention to have a draft budget available with for a public hearing with the next board meeting, and copies will be available here at City Hall, or will they be online with our budget packet? Okay, and available online with our e-packet for the board meeting. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to live to regret this, but if anyone wants to give me a call to discuss the draft budget, either member of the board or the general public or the press, once that draft budget is available, feel free to call me. My number should be online with the city website, but it is 418-4574 if you need it. And with that, I would move that we call for a public hearing at the regular meeting of August 2, 2011 on the proposed City of Starkville budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2012.
Alderman Sistrunk has made a motion to call for a public hearing at the regular meeting of August 2nd, 2011 on the proposed City of Starkville budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2012. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Sistrunk, would you like to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Alderman Carver.
I guess my only complaint would be the fact that we still haven't seen any numbers or I'm lost in the dark as far as where this is going, and I guess being the most important document we put out each and every year in the direction of the city.
It is our plan for spending for the coming year, and it will be available probably that Friday before. Is that when the packets will be out? But this keeps us on target to have public hearings. We'll have 2 public hearings, and then have a vote at the end of August for the budget. And it is a proposed budget. If there's something in there that you feel the need to be changed, certainly it can be brought to the board.
I've also heard rumors floating of a possible millage increase. Have y'all discussed this?
If there were a millage increase, it would be something that was outside, well, I take that back. I can't answer that definitively. If it were of a magnitude that rose to the level of requiring a budget hearing, we'll hear that with the proposed budget. But if it were at a certain level, beyond anything that was simply minimal, I would see that as being a separate vote by the board, because I think you would want to have that approved before you included it in the budget. For instance, the municipal complex police station, depending on when those bonds are issued, that might be something that we would need to include in the budget, pending how we go about financing that. But we would do that as part of an overall board vote.
Further discussion? Any further discussion of Alderman Sistrunk motion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And at this point, I'm going to take a moment of privilege outside of the agenda to note something that the city attorney just pointed out to me. There was a matter under electric department business, item E1 on page 5, the request for approval of a resolution for the lease purchase agreement with the Regions Equipment Finance Corporation, approved by the Board of Alderman at the recess meeting of April 19, 2011, that was supposed to be pulled from the agenda. It was not pulled, and it stayed on the consent agenda, which means it was passed. So that needs to be dealt with before we leave the meeting. It needs to, in some manner, be rescinded. Now, with that said, y'all mull over exactly how you'd like to do that, and we'll continue with the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, may be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Mayor, I move that item E1, being the request approval of the resolution for the lease purchase agreement with Regions Equipment Finance Corporation approved by the Board of Alderman at the recess meeting of April 19, 2011, I move that that matter, as approved by the board, be fully withdrawn and retracted, in that that matter shall be taken up by the board at a later date and time, and the minutes shall reflect that the board took no action on said matter.
Alderman Perkins made a motion with respect to item 11E1, which was previously placed on the consent agenda, item being the request for approval of a resolution for the lease purchase agreement with Regions Equipment Finance Corporation, approved by the Board of Aldermen at the recess meeting of April 19, 2011, that matter be fully withdrawn and retracted, and that the minutes reflect that it was not adopted by the Board of Aldermen. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
That is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Perkins, would you like to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Perkins' motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And
Update on the Hughes construction.
yes, that will carry us to an update on the Hughes construction project that I believe Ms. Spruill has prepared for us tonight.
Mayor and Board, this is the Reed Place subdivision, which is located at 800 Reed Road. It's 37.24 acres with 16.1 acres of open or green space, as it's currently showing on its preliminary plat. The preliminary plat will be going before DRC next Wednesday, and then it'll go to P&Z on August the 9th, and the Board of Aldermen will be seeing that on August the 16th. Now, that's assuming that all the proper requirements are met and that it proceeds forward in accordance with the necessary restrictions placed on it, or the necessary requirements from the DRC and then P&Z. The developer is in the clearing process, as I understand it right now. They had discovered some wetlands and some Indian burial grounds in that area, and they have caused the development to shift slightly south from when y'all first saw the proposal when it came forward, I believe, last year. It currently consists of 76 lots. There'll be 2 areas of ingress and egress along Reed Road. There are 4 roads inside the project that are proposed to be named Oak Alley, Reed Ridge Circle, Reed Court, and Magnolia Lane. Oak Alley and Magnolia Lane will be the 2 that will empty onto Reed Road, and these will be public streets, as I understand it. The 100-foot buffer is reflected on the preliminary plat, and it is between the neighbor to the east, which is essentially Redbud Springs subdivision, but that buffer will be 100 feet. I recall from the presentation they made originally, I think the homes are somewhere in the 1,000 to 1,500 square foot range and have a garage. And then there will be a homeowners association that handles the common areas. It's a pretty rough overview of it. We don't have any more details than that until the DRC takes a look at the preliminary plat, but hopefully that answers any questions that are pending right now.
Thank you, Ms. Rowell.
So with wetlands and Indian burial grounds, those are things that are being properly mitigated and avoided, I'm assuming.
Yes, that was part of the reason for shifting it south. All of that was a little bit to the north of the project as it currently sits, so they shifted the project a little bit to the south. Hence the 16 acres out of 34, 37 that are open green space.
Any further questions or comments for Mr. Pruitt? Any further questions or comments for Mr. Pruitt? Any further questions or comments? Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Pruitt.
you.
The next matter on the agenda is the, I think here's all the way to presentation. Everything you've got on that. All right. The next matter on the agenda is the presentation on the proposed reorganization and structure of the electric department and request for authorization to allow the personnel director to proceed with job description changes and advertising for vacant positions. Mr. Kemp.
Mayor and Board, appreciate the opportunity tonight, is like you said, is to ask for authorization to make some organizational changes along with an implementation plan that will both address an immediate need that we have, also basically position us for what we see as the foreseeable needs in the future. A lot of the things that factored into why we're doing this, or why I'm requesting this today, is that retirement of Larry Wallace, which was our warehouse manager, which is effective June 30th of this year. Then we've also had a retirement of Mark Anderson, who is the plant accountant, which is effective June 30th of this year. There is a planned retirement of Billy Gray, who is a crew chief. He is scheduled for retirement in September 30th. And then we had a resignation of Brian Bishop, which was a meter installer that occurred on June the 21st of this year. I guess when those retirements occurred, I began to relook at how we would structure to meet our current and basically future operational needs. The organization, the plan that was approved, I assume it was in place in '09. I think you have that a copy of your packet. Was the one that we were currently under. And then the other one is a recommended that we would move to effective October of this year. My request would be that we would move in this direction in 2 phases. One, to address the immediate needs based under some current retirements to kind of minimize workflow. And I will say that with the vacancy of Larry Wallace and Brian Bishop, we are supplementing those supports with other personnel in the organization, which takes away from some of the planned activity that we've got in place. Some of the guiding factors that I looked at in considering this, that we tried to implement as we go forward based on our technology that we're currently using and that we plan to use in the future, relates to smart metering and interface with our customers. Also wanted to work closely to try to improve organizational efficiency, teamwork, and also create more flexibility working on minimal staff so that we could not be disrupted versus from an absence or something like that. So we had more flexibility to actually staff along function lines. That was the other thing that we worked closely with in the staff, is to look at functions and how they actually fit together. And here again, I think that also helps in the overall in efficiency. The other thing as we look forward was really promote or focus on customer service. It's always been a part, that's something this board continues to look at, is customer service. I think from the electric department, we take that very important as well, and we're measured to a large extent by reliability, by price, and by customer satisfaction. So as we look to the future, some of the titles and the positions will reflect, I guess, a more focus on customer service and providing services that may not have been available back in '09, but we plan to even use stronger and more so in the years ahead. The other thing that you'll notice in the structure, we're talking about sustainability, and I guess that is we're trying to inject younger people into the training program that in some places will take 3 to 4 years or 5 in the lineman's case to actually build through the organization. And here again, I think that creates more flexibility and teamwork inside the organization. So that was kind of the guiding principles. And we said what I'd ask is maybe consideration for these changes along with an implementation plan. The implementation, it kind of grows into phase 1, which we would ask for consideration for tonight. And that's to move forward with filling the warehouse manager position that's vacated by the retirement of Larry Wallace. That position has been redefined. It is a standalone position. It is be responsible for more functions than what was in the past, but I do think it works in concert with our crew foreman and our operational group. The service technician change, which is item number 2, deals with Brian Bishop. He was listed as a meter installer on the older organizational structure, but he complements Robert Atkins, whose title was a collector. We're trying to move away, although collection is an important part of our business or what our function is in our organization. We're looking more to provide customer services to the consumers, actually in the areas of energy programs, ways to save energy, and better understand how they can manage their utility cost. So we'd like to do more of that, so those functions are going to be changed, and they will be the same. And that's very, very important. Like I said earlier, just for your information, line crews apprentices are backfilling that right now. We're going into a really busy time of the year with new services coming in, students and whatever, a very, very high, I guess, level of work, I guess, this time of the year. So that was one thing we'd like to approve. And then I'd ask that you'd consider and approve the job description to advertise a vacant position of apprentice lineman. That was on the old position, old organization, and if you'll look, with Billy Gray leaving, my recommendation is that we would move to 2 crews instead of 3, which I think here again would make us a little bit more focused, organized, and with long-term being totally filled with linemen. So we're looking for apprentices to come into the program and then work up and eventually be linemen in as quick as possible, as soon as they would meet the minimal requirements to be able to do that. As a part of that function in the old organization, there were 2 positions that were reporting to the warehouse manager. One was the dispatcher and one was the stockman. Under the new structure, both those jobs basically go away because of the lack of amount of work associated with it as we more evolve to a team approach and more emphasis on the warehouse managers themselves. But we would be looking to move Coretta Harris right now over into the reception area, and that shows up on the chart. And that's a real need right now. You're beginning to workload. The function and skill sets as relates to the dispatcher are very close to what the skill sets as relates to the receptionist currently, and so that's what I'd ask for that to do. And then the last part would be the storekeeper. That position would go away effective October the 1st. And that would be phase 1. And then as we go into phase 2, If you look on the new organization, there was a title change in manager of customer services, manager of accounting and administrative services, and then some shift with Tommy Sullivan and Anthony Harris, along with a new position that was on the, I guess, the '09 organization structure, but was never filled. And it dealt as a staking engineer, and to me, I'd like to request that be considered as an engineering aide. And then Mark Anderson left as the plant accountant. The plan is not to fill that position as a plant accountant, but consideration be given to a staff accountant, which would be viewed as a recent graduate to actually, here again, fulfill needs in the accounting structure organization. And the last piece would be to move forward with the meter technician that we really would be needing, and as we go forward with the new metering, and that would be the meter technician. Here again, it was on the old structure but was never filled, but at the end of the day, something I think is very, very important as we go forward. I'd hope that those things could be brought back to the board with more discussion on the job description and approval to go and advertise and move forward with phase 2 over the next couple of weeks or months, and then shoot for some implementation around October 1, which will be the start of the fiscal year. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Mr. Mayor, I got several questions I want to ask, so when I complete my questions, I will announce to you that I'm done, okay? Mr. Kemp, will you just turn over to this phase 1, phase 2? I have a question about each one of the items, okay? And let me just preface my comments by what I'm about to ask you. Mr. Hadaway left us in December of 2010, and when I came to this board, Mr. Hadaway was operations superintendent. He worked his way up through the ranks, and I supported Mr. Hadaway to go into that position. And I say all that to say that Mr. Hadaway did a great job with the electric department, and it's my personal opinion that he left his department in very good working order. And when he left here, I think he left everything like it should be. Now, my first question I want to ask you, I see the job description, and you want to advertise to revise job description, and advertise to fill the warehouse manager. And of course, I'm going to go through each one of these items. I got a question for every one, phase 1, phase 2. Now, first of all, and I want to get a good understanding of what we're going to do. So I want to have, at the end of this discussion, I want to have a good, clear understanding of why we're doing these things. Why are we changing the job description on the warehouse manager? I mean, what's being proposed? In other words, when I look at your job description, I have to read the whole description to know what you're doing. I don't see anything that invites my attention to tell me what's old and what's new. So I want you to tell me what is the difference in this proposed job description versus the ones already on the books. Because I can't tell it just from looking at the document.
Okay, you want to deal with that one first?
Yes, sir, we're going to take one at a time.
All right,
Just take your time.
I think from a function standpoint, the intent on that position would handle everything from working closely with the the general manager and the assistant general manager in creating needs for supplies and materials. They would be very helpful in ordering it, receiving it, storing it, and to the point in this case, actually working hand in hand with the line foreman, the crew chiefs who are currently doing that work, in some cases actually having it on the job site. So it is more of a whole process of handling that part, and it's based on the amount of work and activity that we currently have. It's a reflection of the size and the amount of materials we order and how often we order them, to the fact of trying to match up and create each one of these positions to be a full, at least 40-hour job. That was kind of the premise behind it.
So your current job description as it is written does not allow for those things to be done?
I think it limits it and breaks it apart in groups. That's what I was saying earlier. You've got maybe multiple people doing the same task, and so the efficiency and maximizing what our needs are from an organizational structure, maybe a little bit not as efficient. And I agree with you back on past. Mr. Hadaway did a great job. This is not a reflection of that, but I think since I've been here, I hope part of this is reflective of what we're currently doing. It doesn't really show up on paper, but I think it's pretty close to how it operates.
Okay, before I move to number 2, one comment that I want to make. In the future, yes, I want to make a personal request to you that you submit to the board the current description versus the proposed, so I can read it without having to study this. Number 2, approved change in job title, revised job description for service technician. When I read this, I'm not clear on what you're asking for. Now, why we want to change the job title? I heard your explanation. Let me just kind of give this preface right here as we move on down the list here. Now, I've gotten complaints from constituents about customer service in your department, and I want to preface my comments because we're going to talk more about job titles in phase 2. I'm not, my constituents are not interested in all these fancy job titles. We spent $2 million on a building over there. The elected department has its own kingdom, it has its own operation, and I don't see the benefit of all these cute, pretty, fancy job titles, because my experience on this board, normally when we get all these enhanced and gorgeous and fabulous job titles, there's going to be a request for money. You may tell me that no money is forthcoming, but my experiences, my personal experiences on this board, there's going to be a request for money forthcoming. But with that being said, explain to me in number 2, kind of clear that up, because when I read that, I'm not for sure. Approved change in job title, revised job description for service technician. You want to advertise to fill the vacancy. Resignation of Brian Bishop. Brian job title was meter installer. Then the next sentence you say, this was also change the job title of Robert Akins from collector to service technician. I don't follow that. What are we doing?
Okay. Historically, what we had up until now, we had 2 positions, but at the end of the day, they were basically doing the same thing, which caused a lot of confusion into it. The meter installer over time had actually, when they say a meter installer, I guess after we looked at it, and that would be associated for a large point with a new account. If someone wanted to come in, it had nothing to do with collections or existing meters or verifying that. It'd be if a new person came into an apartment, they wanted a new service or disconnect, that person did that. Here again, the amount of workload on some months, here again, that was very cyclic, and what we've tried to do is measure that since December based on the type functions. So that goes up and down. In the other one, Robert Atkins' title was called collector. And it could be anything, but his function here again was to interface with customers on, here again, basically to some extent, it may be because of a disconnect of service, because of non-payment. It was just going out, pulling a meter, resetting a meter, so the similarity between the 2 functions became very close. The attempt here is that if you looked at the skill sets, in my opinion, between both of those, they're basically the same. So you're looking for skill sets to do certain functions. And here again, you're trying to levelize that, because if you, in the first month, to give you an example, one position might only have 5 jobs per week, the other one have 100. So it's a balance in that, and here again, hopefully to provide quicker service, better response to the consumers. And on the new job, the title doesn't really mean, other than the fact that it reflects, I think, to our customers, and I appreciate what you're saying on that, is that we were trying to say that a service technician would be more than just collecting, because they typically do not collect money. They're actually involved in the metering installation part. But the new job description will try to, it addresses that we still do all those same existing functions, but we also want to be able to describe programs and other services when they're out there. And we've talked about earlier, my hope would be that we move away from that, and not only we do that interchange, but we also use all of our staff to try to demonstrate programs and services that might make their service better, or make it easier to pay. So that's where that is. There is some insertions in that we'd be expecting them to understand how to calculate bills, to describe if a consumer wondered, why is my bill this? While they are out there, they could actually do more than just pull in the meter, or in some place definition is collect.
Before I go to number 3, are you asking any extra money for Robert Atkins from going from collector to service technician?
No.
None.
Go ahead.
And
to that point, ultimately, the other one we put at the same position at Robert. Overall, on the organization, we do all the shifting. I think net on the overall budget is 0. I mean, you're gonna shift and bring back.
I understand all that. I know what the overall net is. Number 3, approved change in job description, advertise to fill a vacant position of apprentice lineman. That's something that we recently, the board, have done. I mean, why we want to change that now? What's the difference? Why you want to change the job description on apprentice lineman?
We want to insert one statement that we expect them to move through the lineman apprentice program.
Okay.
Because ultimately, apprentice is a trainee. And that is, here again, it's the communication. When you hire someone, that you would expect them to grow, to put effort into it, so that at some period of time, through technical training, hands-on experience, and approval by approved linemen, that they've reached that certification point, and then we'd recertify them. So ultimately, the organization would say that you would want linemen here, and that was the only addition to the apprentice line program, is making that one statement.
Number 4, Coretta Harris, she's out there now at your warehouse right now? Coretta Harris, currently. Coretta Harris, number 4, combined use of dispatcher with reception, and move Coretta Harris to this position. She's at the warehouse right now?
She was at the warehouse. We have moved her.
Down to the main office? So you have her on the first floor down there?
She is back in force. She's almost in what you'd consider a cross-training support role.
But she's on the first floor, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so in other words, you're telling us that you need 5 people down on the first floor. You have 3 people behind the desk over there, and you have the last person we hired, which is out there at the desk, and she goes back and forth. And we need 2 receptionists down there at the elect department. We have 5 people working out front. Why do we need so many people out there at the elect department?
Well, I think the attempt there was that she was doing some of the same things at the other department, but by moving her location, she can still do those pieces of a day and then fill in for overhead. We have combined the phones into one, which is basically the dispatching. So if you looked at the amount of level of activity in a function in her day, we've talked about we could move, maybe come up and back there to the other place. It's not about location, it's about how we would do the function. And I think it helps her by being where she is right now, because she's in close proximity to groups that maybe she's not worked with since she's been with the company, and but still use the same skill sets that she's doing. So she still handles, and right at that location, not only does she, but Tasha, they still handle if a person calls in for an outage, it's the same phone system, and that was her function over there. She answered the phone, and then she did some payroll, which we're trying to automate and minimize that exposure, making that a little more streamlined. And then, so that's kind of where it is right now.
One comment before I go to 5, then we'll start phase 2. I think that's an overkill to have 5 people there, 2 receptionists and 3 people. I think what we need to focus on trying to deal with a lot of these complaints that we're getting in the elected department. And I think we need to focus on getting a full work days of productivity out of these employees that we do have. So moving on to number 5, approve the elimination of storekeeper position with notification now, effective date of April 1, 2011. My first question to you on number 5 is anybody in that position now?
There is.
Well, why are you proposing to eliminate a position with somebody in there?
It goes back to the function.
Well, what are you going to do with that person who's in the position? You trying to get rid of them?
Well.
Yes.
Well, at that position, I'm asking that position to go away, correct.
Okay, well, what are you going to do with it? Okay, well, let's talk straightforward. Somebody's in the position. Are you trying to send that person to the house?
No.
Well, your organizational chart doesn't, hold on a minute. Your organizational chart does not reflect where that person is going. Explain.
The organization chart was built about needed functions to carry forward. I think when we started this, and I'll say this back from our organization, from all of our group when I got there, back when Larry announced, we said at that point, as openings came up, we wanted to re-look at things to make sure we were, back to your point, as efficient as we possibly could be. It was not a personal thing. It was not an individual focus. It was trying to say, what do we need to do this and create boxes or functions and then field to those. So that was the attempt. And through that process, we said some of these may be absorbed into others. Now, the intent was to try to move forward now with notification down the road. There's something may develop right now, but that position per se, the way it was structured here, the amount of work that I see is required for that function is not a full-time position.
My question to you is, and respectfully, what are your plans, if any, for the person that is in this position at this time that you are attempting to eliminate effective October 1 of 2011? What are your plans for that person? That's all I want to know.
The only thing that I know, all I could say on that one is make sure that they have available to any other departments, which we've already had that discussion, to encourage to look for other positions. But I guess this does not support a position creating a job for someone. And so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Mr. Mayor, let me just say this. This particular matter, I want to discuss this aspect of this matter, number 5 in executive session tonight. And I'll tell you why when we get there. Next, phase 2. Let's go to phase 2.
Okay.
On phase 2, you want to develop a job description for engineering aid and bring to the board for approval to advertise the field position. Now, we have an engineering department in the city of Starkville. Now, I know you're going to tell me that we've eliminated the third crew chief, who's resigning in his staff, and of course, Mr. Hathaway brought that forward. I know we're under new leadership because he felt that was best for the department. So why do we need to have an engineering? I just want to get some explanation on that.
I think to a large extent, that position may be more of a terminology standpoint. Staking engineer, I used an engineering associate. But they would be, as we move forward with more detailed records, I think that actually can help the overall city engineering function. But this would be helping Jason as he takes on more and more responsibility for projects and planning to, for lack of a better word, keep up with engineering records and data that an engineer needs some assistance with. But it's close to what I think Mr. Hathaway envisioned in staking engineer. It's more of a terminology. I would envision that as basically a 2-year degree with emphasis on the electrical side. We're beginning to do more and more substation tests. I think the engineering function in our group can do some of those tests. This position could help in that. The reason I'd ask that we can bring back a job description for further consideration so it could be further developed on those lines. But that's the envision where that is. The amount of work that with Jason back through that group, just on the engineering, keeping track of our prints. And I will say we struggle at times knowing what's installed where. And we're going to try to do a better job from the electric side, just like the city's trying to do it on their part too. And we want to work together. I think it's a teamwork effort, but I think that's a real void right there. And we lean a lot on outside folks to do some of that work. And I would hope maybe we can start here again developing it inside.
Before we go to number 2, we're going to finish 6, but let me interject another change I don't see specifically noted on your outline here. I want to know, why are you proposing to the board on your new reorganization chart to eliminate the electrical inspector and create a building inspector? In other words, explain to me why is your focus and your interest in wanting to have a building inspector with your being the electrical department head and leading the electrical inspector, in light of the fact we just hired a very high-priced building inspector. I mean, when have we given you the vision to bring a building inspector to your department?
Here again, the function as I understand it, and maybe y'all could help on that, we fund that position for the city. They do electric inspections for us, but they were assigned some time back. They have not reported to the electric department functionally since I've been here. Now that may be a change, but the intent there was to say, because of the similarity, it is funded through the electric department, like you said, but because of the nature of their work and how that function fits, it's better approved back over in the building department, and we support that. I mean, that's fine. So it's not eliminating it, it's trying to clarify exactly who that position is and where it is, so it doesn't get lost in the budget schedule.
Moving on to the next matter, change job title positions. For example, let's take Tommy Sullivan, for example. We hired him in, I think, the last term as assistant manager. And I noticed you are proposing for him, for example, manager of engineering and operations, assistant general manager. You go on to name others like Shane Grantham, manager of customer services, among other titles. I mean, why are we doing this? And also, I want to make sure I confirm with you on the record, you're not planning on coming back to us asking for no salary increases or realignments or real adjustments based upon these flowery job titles.
The attempt on the job descriptions, the titles, here again goes back to what I said earlier. We're trying to identify the function of what they are and how they report. Assistant general manager is what Tommy was, and I still see that as very, very important as it is. The focus is on the engineering and operations side. Even when Ed was here, the structure, this kind of reflects that. So the title, I think, is consistent with what it was by assistant general manager, with the focus on engineering operations. It may not have been implied, so hopefully the intent was to, I guess, more accurately describe what's currently been going on, or what is going on, or what I'd like to go on. As we talked about team, you would like to spread this out so that groups of your managers are working together as a team. It flattens the organization. And this structure, you mentioned Tommy, for instance, at one time there was an operational superintendent. Currently with our existing staff, in a way I envision going forward with our two strong line foremen, with Jason, with Tommy, whatever else, proposally just take that off the table at this point in time. There's no need for that now. So in his job, there would be no change in salary. Shane's would not. It's more reflection here again of not just a collection, but more of a direction of where I'd like to take the organization and have more focus on customer services. Superintendent of metering and technical services, same. The only change that we'd look at and be consideration would be under the manager of accounting and administrative services. Katie is absorbed doing all the accounting functions now. A large part of the oversight of the plant accounting function still rests with her and her responsibility. Part of that, as you look to how we attract that, and that number goes down with our plant accounting system that we have now versus 10 years ago. We don't spend that much time on plant accounting. We just need a process in place to make it work. In her case, I'd like for her to keep everything she's currently doing, but then also help me with administrative services as an administrative assistant. So that would be an added function to that, and there could be some consideration for that, but that would be for y'all's discussion.
And when you say consideration for that, you're talking about consideration for more money?
For reevaluating that position. That's
For
correct.
getting more money, that's the bottom line, right?
Well,
I mean,
yes,
just
sir.
yes or
It
no?
could be. It could be.
Okay, we're gonna skip number 4. I wanna talk about 3 and 5 together, okay? All right, we have a vacancy for a plant accountant, and that plant accountant, I think Mr. Anderson, who's we recognize tonight, he's been in that position probably at least back in 1993 or 1994. And that plant accountant basically performed functions for the warehouse. Now, in my understanding of accounting, just getting general background, why is there a need, let me finish my question here, why is there a need to fill this staff accountant? Now, you got Ms. Gint there. Now, I think this is the prime opportunity to just have one accountant in your department. We have a city accountant. We have a CPA firm who, Watkins, Ward, and Stafford, we have an engagement letter, maybe been in the packet tonight, who assists with whatever function we need. Now, we have Ms. Debbie Clark, our accountant. She provides services for 9 departments, at least. I may be off a little bit here or there, but she did 10 with the Parks Commission. Now, I want to know, why do we need two accountants? Since the opportunity presents itself this time, why do we need two accountants to run the elected department? You know, in other words, it would seem to me if you know, and maybe, you know, we could consolidate this service. We got to have these men accountants. Ms. Clark could be the, since we're talking eliminating position like the Stockman, maybe we can eliminate this accounting position. You know, maybe we can eliminate this, because we got a city accountant. I mean, she's a crackerjack at what she does. She does her work good, and I've been on budget committees before this term. So, you know, maybe if we got to have two accountants over there, maybe we can have Ms. Clark doing that. So I think this is a prime time, and here we're talking about having two accountants. Why do we need two accountants for the elected department? I mean, there is no other department. Chief Lindley may want an accountant. Mr. Devlin may want an accountant. Mr. Fire Chief may want an accountant. Ms. Boyd may want an accountant. Why do we need two accountants for the elected department? I understand the background information, which I'm not going to go to sitting here in this session tonight. I understand the background information on the plant accountant and other relating accounting matters in your office, but I'm wanting to know, since the opportunity presents itself, why do we need to have two accountants in your department?
I think I'll go back to the first part. When I look at plant accounting, I look at it as a function of the overall accounting for our department. Although a lot of it deals with polls and stuff like that, is requirement, a component of the agreement we have to get with TVA under our set of books. That's separate, that has to be done. Plant accounting is just a part of that. The way it's handled, where you actually take a transformer, it could be a vehicle, computer equipment, any of that stuff, how it actually put into the plant, minimized, that would be a plant accounting function. So the plant accounting function is not just a warehouse. What I was trying to say is basically an organizational structure. That component, if you look at in process and how you would actually working with the warehouse manager, when you take material out of stock, actually goes to a job, which goes back to the engineering aid and that function based under a job order, how that's actually applied, then that actually is rolled into the count, and then you track it, so depreciation. So that function, and that's what we're trying to say, over time, the amount of time it takes to actually handle plant accounting from the department on an ongoing basis it goes down and can be incorporated in processes from a team approach. Now, the new accountant was the idea that saying, as we look to the future, and I worked with our personnel director, and thinking maybe accounting technician, maybe something there that could bring someone new into the organization. They would not be a certified CPA accountant, but here again, I look for opportunities always to start building based under the workforce as it is today, because even in that one, like an apprentice lineman, it will take a while to develop into what you would say an accountant. This person would not be able to come in and do all of the accounting functions that Katie does as relates to what our requirements on the TVA contract, and it was not intended to replace that. So again, here again, it could be a training function, and I think it would help us long-term, but it is not a critical, and that's why it's in phase 2.
Well, one last thing before I go to the last item. You know, with your suggestion that you need an accountant to help with administrative services, and see, at the last budget year, the board gave real adjustments and real alignments to just a handful of people out of our large workforce. And what your request is setting up here is setting up the board, in my opinion, to have to deal with similar requests. Because if you come here tonight, for example, you're proposing this change in job title for your current accountant, and you want her to be an administrative assistant, you just admitted on record that you probably going to be asking for a salary increase for her, potentially. So when I hear from the city clerk, and she's going to bring me her administrative assistant up here, Miss Gandy, and she's going to give me another flowery job title, which I'm not going to like. I'm going to tell her to her face about it. It's going to be no different. No different. I just call the shots however they come out there. It don't matter to me what department you are. I tell Marquita the same thing. So when she comes up here and asks for us to make Miss Emma Gandy manager of support services and administrative assistant, and she's going to ask me for some money, then what do you think other department heads gonna do? I mean, certainly, it is my opinion, the other department heads gonna do the same thing. I mean, this is a litmus test for us tonight on this, in my opinion. I've seen this before, you know, and I'm very skeptical when I see these job titles, and, you know, just like you admitted, you didn't want to, you know, and then we eliminate positions. We have to be very careful. You know, we're under a court order, how we handle personnel matters. I'm gonna just say that to you. So I think that if we need somebody to do some more accounting functions, we need to, maybe we need to look at redoing the overall accounting matters through Ms. Clark's office. Because she does the whole city. I'm sure it wouldn't be necessary for her to do another department. Now, skipping down to number 6, now you mentioned earlier that you wanted an engineering aide. Now, we have an engineering department. It would seem to me that we can get some assistance from them. Why do we need an engineering clerk? We got an engineering aide, now we need an engineering clerk.
Here again, I think it's evolving into how we would structure to be able to document and keep track of things. In my vision, what I would use is someone to alleviate some of the clerical clerk functions off of the entire engineering and operations group. So I think those folks would be, can be very helpful in that. So here again, it's not intended to stand alone. It's basically to support this group and this function. And we said earlier, like skill sets that Coretta or Tasha or some of the others that may evolve into that. It has not been fully developed, but there is clerical clerk type functions in that group that's being operated by other people that make them inefficient. And so the attempt was to, here again, is to try to look at how, if you've got an amount of work to put in that category, and then come up with some title to reflect skill sets and duties, and that's where that comes from. That's the intent.
Mr. Kemp, let me close out with this. Everything I've asked you tonight, everything I say is nothing personal. That's just Alderman Perkins' nature. I've been like that since July 6th of 1993. I'm going to be like that until I leave this board. So I want to stand for something. If not, I'll fall for nothing. So I want to say this. I know that you're probably trying to give us your best on this, but I'm not satisfied personally with this approach that you're bringing to us. I think, you know, with all these names, these changing titles, I think we potentially going to see some new requests for salaries. I think the overall emphasis in all these departments, including yours, should be more focused on work productivity and efficiency with what we got. You know, we've seen a big incline, in my opinion, in the size of government, in the payroll. We are struggling citywide. You may say you may have the money to do this, but if we have that kind of money in the electric department, I think we need to suggest rolling back the rates. You know, we got a lot going on in this city. I think we need to let the taxpayers know that we are as conservative and as frugal as we are. There are a lot of issues that are facing the city, that will be facing the city. We include issues of municipal complex. So, you know, I think this is a very extravagant proposal. I think that the city has done a great job in the past of where we have taken the elected department to with a $2 million building. I think the job titles are fine as they now exist. I don't think we need any new personnel. I think we can operate within the structure that we have. I think we need to try to resolve a lot of the complaints that I'm hearing from my constituents about matters that pertain to and or relate to the elected department. I think that we do not need to look at any realignment in pay. I don't know what the budget committee and this board and this mayor may do for pay raises, but I think whatever the board, if anything that the board may do, I think we need to look at the entire workforce. I don't think we need to look at any realignments this year. And certainly if we approve this, particularly including that for your accountant, then, you know, it's going to come back with some increase. And you're going to say, well, I'm saving money here. Well, just because we got money to save, it does not necessarily that we have to spend it. It's just like in the private sector, you know, a rainy day is going to come. So when the rainy day is going to come, we need to have that money set aside for that. So, you know, I don't have any problem, perhaps, you know, maybe, you know, filling a vacancy like the meter technician. That's vacant. but all these other, enhanced names and eliminating the position that the people are now in, I don't think that's a good idea. So I just wanted to share that with you, very respectful. And I wanted to take this opportunity to address this. It wasn't to demean you by any stretch of the imagination. And I just wanted just to speak on each one of these and wasn't trying to just consume unnecessary time, but I just want to make sure I understand and where we're headed and where we're going. And again, and the reason I mentioned about Mr. Hathaway from the beginning, because no disrespect to you, and I appreciate where you're trying to go, but I feel that he left the department where we need to be, and I feel that the only thing we need to do from here at this point is just get as much productivity. We're not a TVA operations over there. We are part of the city of Starkville, and we need to always be focused on that. We always need to remember that. Mr. Mayor, I am now done, and I yield the floor.
Further questions or comments for Mr. Kemp? Any further questions or comments for Mr. Kemp?
Really, the only question I have, I spoke with you earlier about this, but in the org chart, your line of linemen that's vacant currently, and then it's will be removed from your new org chart. And you were talking about it's the whole line of your third line with your crew
Correct.
chief.
Correct.
And I know there's a vacant now, and you're talking about the demand right now at this time of year and things like that. And that may not be the same. I may be thinking of meter reader individuals and meter installers, but how do you prepare for that, just to eliminate a whole org chart? I mean, those are boots on the ground people. Don't we need them? Or?
Well, I think what you're getting at is part of what I was trying to convey here. They were on this chart, but they were not funded. This really tightens this up and saying that we had a crew chief, but we didn't really have structure below that group.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to say is let's more realistically reflect what we're doing here. So that was the intent. But the apprentice is, and I'll give you an example, right now we're short, if you lose a lineman or two, it's just certain things that we can do. And the best way, in my opinion, is to develop that is coming up through the apprentice rank. So I think we'll have, at the end of the day, if you look out into the future, what I would hope and vision would have basically 6-man crews, and that means a working foreman. So they'd be working with that, and all of them would be linemen or very close to it, which means the flexibility that you could shift by work would be a tremendous. It would make it a lot easier to operate on smaller staffs. And that was what the intent here is, trying to reflect basically a reduction, a simplification maybe of this chart here based on how we'd actually function. Excuse me.
Any further questions or comments for Mr. Kemp? Any further questions or comments from members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Alderman Perkins, you had mentioned there was one matter that you wanted to discuss in executive session.
Yeah.
Which matter was that?
Number 5, I'd like to discuss that for the board to take any action on this matter.
Okay, and
And it will qualify for executive session.
seeing as you've got a series of matters that are all connected to each other, starting with the request for approval of the org chart, and then moving into a series of discussions under personnel, it may make most sense, rather than waiting till the end of the agenda for executive session, to move into an executive session now to determine whether it's necessary to.
Mr. Mayor, might be recognized.
You may.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the meeting be closed to determine whether or not an executive session should be declared.
Alderman Perkins has made a motion to move into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Alderman Perkins, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Who made the second? Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Perkins, would you like to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Perkins' motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes, and we'll allow a moment to clear the room for the closed session. And without objection, I'm going to move us into a brief recess while the room is being cleared. Seeing none, we'll stand in brief recess. All right. Is Carl coming back? The board approved of 2 motions during executive session, And for the sake of clarity, I will ask the city attorney to read the two motions approved.
The board approved entering into an option agreement through December 31st of 2012 to purchase the Stedman property as part of the site for the new municipal complex. The board also moved approval to enter into an option agreement through December 31st, 2012 to purchase the Copeland per year property for the municipal complex as a site for the municipal complex in consideration for reimbursing the Copeland and Puryears the value of their property taxes on those parcels for the year 2012.
All right, and that will carry us back to the place where we were on our agenda, which is the consideration of the proposed reorganization from Electric Department Manager Terry Kemp.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of that reorganization and structure with the elimination of number 5 under phase 1 of the proposed organizational changes as presented.
All right, Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the proposed reorganization and structure of the electric department and, the proposed reorganization and structure of the electric department as presented, with the exception of item number 5 under phase 1 of that proposal, which is the approval of the elimination of the storekeeper position with notification now and effective date of October 1st, 2011. To clarify, that matter I just read is the only matter that is excluded from the original presentation as part of Alderman Dumas' motion. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Dumas, would you like to speak on the merits?
No.
Discussion.
Mayor,
Alderman Perkins.
does the motion addresses phase 2? I just want to make it for personal clarity.
Yes. Alderman Dumas, that was phase 1 and phase 2. Everything on the written presentation with the exception of item number 5 under phase 1, correct?
That is correct.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Dumas' motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
All right, let's divide this one. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, I have 1, 2, keep them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against, please signify by raising your hand. And 2 against. This measure carries.
So everything passed in that motion, phase 1 except for number 5 and phase 2 was adopted?
That's right.
Okay.
And that will carry us to the request for approval to hire Pamela Daniel to fill the vacant position of the Assistant City Planner.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to approve of the hire of Pamela Daniel to fill the vacant position of Assistant City Planner as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Dumas' motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
All right, I'm going to divide. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. I have by a count of 6 to 1, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval to promote Lee Kellum to the vacant position of lieutenant in the fire department.
So
Mr.
moved.
Alderman Dumas made a motion to approve of the promotion of Lee Kellum to the vacant position of lieutenant in the fire department as presented. Alderman Dumas, that's your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Dumas, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the revised job description for the position of warehouse manager in the electric department and authorization to advertise to fill this position.
So moved.
Discussion. Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the revised job description for the position of warehouse manager in the electric department and authorized to advertise to fill this position as presented. Alderman Dumas, that's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Dumas, wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
All right, I'm gonna divide. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a count of 6-1, that measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the job description for the position of service technician in the electric department. Discussion.
So moved.
The motion's been made by Alderman Corey to approve of the job description for the position of service technician in the electric department, approval to advertise to fill the position, and approval to change the title of the collector position to that of service technician as presented. Alderman Corey, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Was that Alderman Dumas?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Corey, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna divide. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
You got me on nay, right?
I've got you on there, but I
Yeah.
won't get a hand raised. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 6 in favor with 1 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the revised job description for the position of apprentice lineman in the electric department. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Alderman Dumas to approve of the revised job description for the position of apprentice lineman in the electric department and authorize the advertisement to fill the position as presented. Alderman Dumas, that's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Divide. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 6 in favor, 1 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the request for approval of the
Made moot.
yeah, that item has been made moot by the decision from the board. Is there any objection to moving forward in the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move past that item in the agenda. And that exhausts our agenda.
I move that we
The matter,
adjourn until August 2nd, 2011 at 5:30 at 111 or 101 Lambert Street in City Hall.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to adjourn until August 2nd, 2011, 5:30, 101 Lambert Street in City Hall courtroom. Alderman Dumas, that's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Corey. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure passes. Stand in the
Is that your?
Hell in, Alderman.